I think I'm going to start chatting, Sarah, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome. My name is Aidan Brown. I'm a senior lecturer at Belfast Metropolitan College. It's my very great pleasure to be here today as our host for this, the fourth of our Bring IT On webinars. And these programs have been proved very popular. They'll be recorded. There'll be an opportunity for you to ask questions during the course of the morning as well, using the chat function. And we're delighted to have such a diverse range of guests with us today. The purpose of this, the fourth of our series of seminars, is to raise awareness of the great number of careers that are available in the IT sector for people really at various points in their courses of educational journey and also working life as well. We'll hear more about that a little bit later on today. So, given the kind of current situation which we have in Northern Ireland, both economically, politically, in terms of the economy, we thought it'd be a really good idea to stop for a moment and just take the pulse of the situation and talk to people who really are experts in the field. And it's an absolute pleasure that we're joined today by two guests from Liberty IT, and we're going to be hearing from Paddy and from Chris a little bit later on today. And we're aware that there are also some colleagues from their company with us today. We welcome Zoe and her colleagues who are going to have an opportunity to hear part of the webinar today, but also to enjoy the recording a little bit later on today. So no pressure at all on our two key presenters from those with whom they work and share a virtual workspace today. So Paddy Burns and Chris Maitland will be giving a kind of a flavour of their careers, what they've done, what they studied at school, what they studied at university, the kind of interesting changes in direction which led them to the kind of high-performing roles which they're in today. And I think you'll find that very interesting, because certainly in my research and the chats that I've had with both presenters, I find that very interesting indeed. I'm going to be talking just in terms of housekeeping a little bit later on. I've mentioned the fact that there are questions, so you can submit questions in the chat bar. We have a question already. Well, not a question, but we have a good luck and welcome message from Zoe Anderson and all the team at Liberty IT. And we're very grateful to everyone at Liberty for supporting us today and for being part of this really, really useful exercise. So later on today, I'm going to be talking about the social channels, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and of course our Bring IT On website. I'm not going to say too much about that because we have a resident expert on all things IT and careers in IT, and I refer now to my friend and colleague Sarah Lyons. Sarah's going to speak to us now and give an overview of some of the exciting things which are happening in partnership with Belfast Met. Sarah.
Thank you so much, Aidan, for that introduction. My name is Sarah Tars. That's my maiden name. Sarah Lyons is my name, and I lead the delivery of Bring It On. And Bring It On is a programme which is funded by the Department for the Economy and delivered throughout Northern Ireland by Belfast Met. And it's all about raising awareness on careers and pathways into IT for any new entrant. And really, given the situation that we're in at the moment, we thought this series of webinars would be a really good idea to really help people who perhaps have been impacted by the current situation, who are thinking about a change of direction. And we often hear that IT is just for those people who have a specialist degree in IT, and it's just for young guys and fresh graduates. But we're here to tell you today that it's not. There are traditional routes into the sector, but I think working in a college, even in times before COVID, Aidan and I saw people deciding to take a jump and move into IT on a regular basis. So just because you may have worked in one industry for many years, it doesn't at all mean that you should feel pigeonholed into that area. You're really going to have skills that are transferable and applicable to a life in the IT sector. And I really hope that today will inspire you and give you confidence to maybe try something new. So what I'm going to show you today is really reasons why you might consider a career in IT, different pathways into the sector, some of the companies that are active in Northern Ireland at the moment, and then we'll move on to talking with Paddy and Chris. So why might you consider a career in IT? Well, first of all, salaries. So according to research published at the end of last year by our local statistics and research agency, NISRA, the average tech salary is 41,000, and that compares to an average salary of 27,000 across all industries. There are lots of jobs, so you may be thinking, gosh, the COVID pandemic has hit the labour market hard, and that's true. But the tech industry is continuing to grow. So according to Tech Nation, Northern Ireland has the highest proportion of digital tech roles advertised at almost a quarter of all roles. Northern Ireland has become a hub for digital technology, with Belfast ranking in the top 10 cities of the future for tech. At the moment, there are around 60,000 people working in tech in Belfast alone, and about 1,200 tech companies in Northern Ireland. I love all these stats, they're great. It just shows you the potential in Northern Ireland. One other report that I read recently is one that Zoopla put out in January, and they stated Belfast is the most tech-friendly city, and the metrics they looked at included the number of tech job adverts, the number of electric vehicle chargers, the number of tech startups, and the average download speed. So just shows you, like, Belfast is an attractive place for companies to come and set up. Working in IT, you will have the opportunity to thrive personally by working in multidisciplinary teams, and lead to a really rewarding career. And this next point, the relaxed and informal working environment. In pre-COVID times, I would have spoken a lot about, the offices at some of these IT firms are great. Sure, they've got these areas where you can go and have a nice coffee and chat with your colleagues and socialise and maybe play video games. A company that Aidan and I worked with even had a slide in their office, so you didn't need to use the lift or stairs. You could just go down to the next floor on the slide. At the moment, what we're seeing is a real shift in different initiatives. So actually a friend of mine at the weekend was telling me that she had a virtual cook-along. So that sounds a bit risky with a glass of wine, to be honest. And there have been other online initiatives that I've seen as well. So virtual Christmas parties around Christmas with hampers. I've seen that Allstate did a series with Mr. Motivator, so he seems to have made a real resurgence in this COVID pandemic, which is great to see. He's still motivating people 30 years later. But what I really want to point out from this is that companies do really have a strong focus on employee engagement and flexibility, which is so important at any time, but especially at the time we find ourselves in now. In IT, you will have the opportunity to work across many different industries. In large organisations, you could be working on a project, anything, I guess, from healthcare to cybercrime. There are many different career paths. IT roles vary widely. So when I'm talking about a job in IT, it's just not one job or career path. It's not just the person who's sitting in their office in their hoodie who's sitting coding all day. So those are myths that we try to bust when we're out and about. Some big areas that you may have heard talk of are cyber, data, AI, fintech. You could choose to work in IT in any business. You may be interested in games design, software engineering, data analytics, testing, design, user experience. And you also could be thinking, gosh, I don't know what any of that is. And that's okay too. Hopefully we'll be able to point you to some resources today that'll help you find out a bit more about the different areas. In IT, you will enjoy the opportunity to keep learning, growing, developing as new technologies emerge. You will get to explore your creative side. You'll be asked to contribute to projects and come up with new ideas. And if you're coming from somewhere else, if you have a different background, if you've been in a different industry, you're going to be able to bring a really fresh and new perspective to the table, which is going to add value to any team that you're involved in. So I'm just going to move on now to looking at how you potentially can get into the IT sector. What are the pathways? And it really does depend on you and what your learning style is, but I do think that there is a route for everybody. So if you're academic, there'll be a route for you. If you're not particular academic, there'll be a route for you as well. So firstly, we're going to look at if you have GCSE or equivalent level qualifications. Well, you could choose to do A level in any subject. Sometimes maths is preferred by universities, but not always. There are a number of other qualifications you could consider doing. For example, like BTEC diploma or extended diploma or OCR qualification. These will all be available at the 6 further education colleges which are in Northern Ireland, and you could choose a huge variety of different subjects. At the moment, there are a lot of virtual open days going on, so do check out what's happening at colleges at those virtual open days and find out a wee bit more about the different courses on offer. If you have A level or equivalent qualification, I do apologise for writing level 3. That's a failing that we often do in a further education sector. Before I worked in further education, I had no clue what levels are, but basically level 3 is the equivalent to 2 A level passes. So if you have A levels, you might consider going into a full or part-time degree course in an IT related subject, or even a foundation degree or HND at one of the further education colleges in Northern Ireland. You may want to consider the apprenticeship route. So if you don't want to go into full-time study, you could apply to one of the many employers that offer apprenticeships. And what that would mean is you're an employee. You would attend a college for, during the academic year, 1 day a week. You do a boot camp at the beginning of your apprenticeship, so you're paid. You're getting experience and you're getting qualifications, so that does really appeal to some people. And similarly, there are quite a lot of employer-sponsored degree and employment programs. So if you have a degree, you can get onto a tech program with an employer, which is a really great way to gain experience as well. And if you have a degree, you could consider, again, your local further education college will have a large number of tech qualifications. For example, the likes of a Microsoft Technical Associate qualification in a variety of topics. A Cisco Cyber qualification is something that you could look at. There are graduate traineeships and employment from non-IT related degrees. I've highlighted this section here in the middle because that's particularly relevant for the time we're in at the moment. So skills intervention is if you have been impacted by coronavirus, there's a range of free, fully accredited courses available to help you retrain and improve your skills. And these courses are fully funded by the Department for the Economy. And really, if you want to find out more about those, go to any search engine and type in Skills Intervention Programme Northern Ireland, and it'll direct you to an NI Direct page, which will list all of the academic institutions and courses that are available. So do have a look at those. You could choose to do an Assured Skills Academy. So I know there are a couple of different Assured Skills Academies advertised at the moment. So what an Assured Skills Academy is, it's a pre-employment program, and it's for anybody. Well, so if you have a degree in any background, you can apply to an Assured Skills program, and they're usually aligned to a specific employer who maybe can't get the skills they require in the marketplace. So they're running a cyber course to get people into cyber roles. They're running a data course to get people into data roles, and this again is a program which is funded by the Department for the Economy, and it's something that Aidan and I know a lot about because we work on a lot of the Assured Skills Academies which are delivered through Belfast Met. Belfast Met have delivered almost 100 Assured Skills Academies. Aidan, you can't tell from how young he looks, Aidan has been involved in almost every single one of those Assured Skills Academies, and through those academies, we have seen around 1,500 people getting into jobs. In fact, over 200 of those have happened since March last year. So that model is continuing to thrive in an online delivery method. So do, again, have a look at Assured Skills if you are interested in coming into the industry as a fast track route that you can take to get in. You could consider a master's degree in an IT related subject or a master's conversion. So funny, we're going to hear a wee bit more about master's conversion later today from Patty and Chris. In Northern Ireland, there are a huge range of IT sector employers. Hopefully, I'm not doing anybody a disservice here. I just took a wee snapshot of some different companies. Affleck up here in the top left, they have a European Centre of Excellence in Belfast and offer both software development and cybersecurity solutions. When we met them last year, they had less than 20 employees and they now have over 70 today. Fintrue down here at the bottom, they are a Belfast dairy-based fintech company and were listed on this year's Sunday Times Virgin Atlantic Fast Track 100 as the 42nd fastest growing company in the UK, and they've been recruiting a lot of people over the lockdown. City publicised that they were recruiting a lot of people as well during this time. Version 1 is a Dublin headquartered IT service provider, and they established a digital development hub in Belfast and are also recruiting. Liberty IT, who we are hearing from later today, they announced at the end of last year that they're recruiting for 150 new roles over the next 12 months with opportunities in software engineering, architecture, data science, AI and product design. And just last week you probably heard on the news that KPMG are going to be creating 200 tech jobs in Belfast, and in fact 160 of those jobs are coming through Assured Skills, with ourselves involved in that as well at Belfast Met. So hopefully that will give you an idea of the opportunity and the growth that's happening in Northern Ireland at the moment. This is a really attractive place for employers to come, and we're seeing a lot of foreign direct investment in the region at the moment, and it's a really exciting time to get into tech. If you do want to get into IT, so what should you do next? Well, the Department for Economy has a careers service and careers advisors who are available to you no matter what stage you're in your career. And you can organise to have a virtual consultation with those careers advisors. The careers service also have a very useful information unit, and they recently have published information about data analytics and software technology. So if you are interested in those couple of areas, do check that information out. It includes interviews from people who work in those areas, and it's a very interesting overview. You may want to talk to someone in a career area you are interested in, or we could even link you up with one of our Bring It On ambassadors. Other things you could consider doing is build contacts through online platforms. Certainly prior to the pandemic, you could have gone to a tech meetup every night, and I'm sure there's a virtual meetup that you could go to every night too, and many of these virtual meetups or events are free. Sync NI has a good summary of events that are available on their events page. Online courses you could do are available on the likes of Open University. They have an excellent Open Learn platform, which have a range of tech topics covered. So now I am delighted to move on to the main part of our webinar. So I'm going to hand back over to Aidan, who is going to welcome our two guests from Liberty IT.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for that really comprehensive overview. And as somebody who works with Sarah, I greatly admire your work rate, your ability to keep across all of these things that are happening at the minute. A very, very exciting time. What I should have mentioned earlier on is that Sarah has worked nationally and internationally in the automotive industry. And Sarah, you'd be interested in a little piece I saw on the news this morning about someone who's moving parts for cars around different parts of Europe at the minute and facing a lot of headaches with paperwork and so forth with regard to Brexit. Perhaps you're not too mournful about not being in that area at the minute. You quite like being in higher education. And also Sarah mentioned about charging points, and it was absolutely fascinating just to read this morning again online about the people's car in China, where for £3,200 you can have an electric car with a 30-mile radius. And if you spend £5,000, you get one of those cars with air conditioning. So Belfast is, we're catching up, but we're on the move anyway, which is fantastic. And Sarah mentioned a number of things there, and one of the things that we'll just touch on a little bit later on is about the Assured Skills Academies, because we've had graduates from every degree background. I really can't think of one that we haven't had who've come back to us in that. And on the Belfast Met website at the minute, you'll see a profile of a really fabulous young woman, Linda Fettis, who was a medical person, physio, BSc, MSc physio, had funding for a PhD, which dried up because of this current kind of pandemic. And Linda trained with us, did an Assured Skills Academy, got a job with PwC, and it was my great pleasure to nominate her to go on UTV for the View from Stormont programme about retraining, and she was a wonderful ambassador. Profile of Linda on the Belfast Met website. Well, Sarah mentioned the master software conversion and the kind of number of routes that people take to get high achieving roles in IT, and we have two really splendid speakers with us today. So we have Paddy Burns and Chris Maitland, and both Paddy and Chris have been very kind in terms of volunteering to be with us today and to share their story, which is absolutely fascinating in terms of what they have achieved, what they've done, and how we're going to do that. So just before I come to Paddy with my first question, I'm going to just remind everybody that at the end, I'll be giving you the links again for our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And there you'll be able to find out if you have any questions there about how to get in touch with the Bring IT On ambassador and so forth. We'll be able to answer all of that. So Paddy and Chris, welcome. So looking forward to hearing your story today. I'm going to start, Paddy, with you. And first of all, if you could tell us about what you do and a little bit about the company that you work for, please. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I think maybe just to start with what Liberty IT actually, what the company is and where we sit in context of our overall parent group. So we're essentially a software house for Liberty Mutual, which is a global insurance provider, and you probably wouldn't have heard of them locally, but they're very much associated with Hughes Insurance in Northern Ireland, and across the globe there's about 45,000 employees in total. So as I said, Liberty IT, we're kind of like an in-house software department for Liberty, exclusively working on products and features for Liberty Mutual. So at the minute, our current staff complement's about 500, and that's split between Belfast and Dublin. There's probably more there's substantially more in Belfast than there is in Dublin. But as was mentioned earlier, we are currently recruiting at the minute, and I think there's an aim to grow up to about 150, 200 people over the next year, 18 months. So, certainly if anybody is, on here who's interested, just have a look at our current offerings on our career website, just to even give you a flavour of what kind of roles that are available out there at the minute and what sort of essential and desired requirements are needed. So just bringing it back in terms of what I do really on a daily basis, one of the great things about working in software is it's very difficult to say what you have as what you do in a typical day. It's each day is quite varied, to be quite honest. We don't have a very much a set sort of timetable or a set list of tasks to do. And generally my day will start with logging in, checking any emails, and then really what happens after that there is just depending on what I've been working on over the past couple of days or what comes into your inbox or anything that comes up. So it probably would be better, the best thing would probably be better to give an overall general overview of the core task we would do, over the sort of a week or a couple of weeks. So, really, working in software is very much a collaborative process. Everybody, even myself, had this perception of sitting, as somebody said, in the hoodie with the headphones on and typing away like mad on the keyboard all day. But that's very much not the case. As I said, it's a very collaborative process, and so one of the things we start with on the daily basis is to have a team meeting. Check in with the team, discuss what we did yesterday, what we did today, what we're going to do today, or hope to do, and any blockers, and discuss any sort of issues that we might have. Our core tasks then might involve design sessions with regarding a feature we're actually planning to do or we're actually working on at the minute. So we might sit and have a collaborative sort of design session with other colleagues, even from our team or from other teams, we will we might actually then sort of one of our main core tasks is actually implementation of our features and the product. So that does involve sitting down, thinking about what code you're going to write, how you're going to write it, how you're going to tackle that problem. It's essentially all about problem solving in a systematic manner. And basically sitting coding, or else bug fixes. But we would have some of our daily duties would also involve service support, and which includes maybe fixing a few issues that came up over the while. So I think kind of really what essentially it's fair to say that we're involved, especially in Liberty Mutual or Liberty LIT. We're very much involved in the whole software development lifecycle. So no matter what grade you're at, as you come in, like myself, came in as an associate at graduate level, you're involved, from the initial design and even the planning of your workload. You're involved in, even before that, you're involved in, when we're going to do the work and, and at what stage. So you're involved in the planning of the workload, design stage, implementation, actually deploying it, letting it go feral into the wild and seeing how the software that you've contributed to or developed, how that actually performs and when it's being used by service users. And as I said, service support as well, where you're actually then addressing any issues that might come up or adding new features. So yeah, it's it's a very varied. Even after this call, I'm thinking, what am I going to there's 2 or 3 things I could be doing after this, which actually don't involve coding, to be quite honest. So it's quite nice.
It's such a range of things that you're doing. I have to be very mindful about this because I read a thing on the Chartered Management Institute website yesterday about microaggressions, which is about commenting on the backgrounds that people have whenever they're participating in online meetings. But I'm just looking at, you both have Ghostbusters and Gremlins over your shoulders there. So I don't know whether that's a reflection on a kind of the course of a working week that you talk about bug fixes there, and I don't know whether you consider yourself a Ghostbuster or not, or a mender, repairer, or something like that. But we're going to come back.
I was going to say, I have a Back to the Future poster downstairs, so it kind of works well because I'm working on a project which a system which is probably about 15, 20 years old, so it fits in well there.
So it really is I love it whenever you say you switch on your email, you turn on your email in the morning, and then that dictates what's happening in the day. So you may well have something planned, but I suppose it's about being flexible. An interesting point that you're making, reflecting on your own profession, that when we are running our Assured Skills Academies, which are really working, 1,500 graduates into jobs, and an essential part of that is the human skills, building up resilience, the ability to work collegially within a team, and incredibly important.
Just on that point, actually, because I think it's a very important point. Sorry to digress slightly, but really, the interview process at Liberty IT actually does carry out for the process that I was involved in, and Chris as well, was actually very much focused on personal skills, which was for me, like you probably can tell by the size of my hairline that I've worked in a couple of different industries and been through quite a lot of interviews, and they're very much very technical and skills focused. Whereas with Liberty, it was very much yes, there was a coding challenge to basically see if you can code, the essential skills. But then the focus was very much half the interview process very much focused on interpersonal skills, how you work as a team and how you as a person can communicate. And it was for me, it was a unique experience and very refreshing, and something. It was actually, it didn't feel like an interview, but the emphasis and focus was on team working and how personable you are as an individual as well.
In that, Paddy, just reflecting what you said, Sarah and I worked on a program with a cybersecurity company, and the lady that was the boss of the company said, if I send an analyst or a consultant out and there's been a breach, the very first thing I want them to do is to consider the impact on that person's life, on that person's sleep pattern, on that person's family relationships, and to assure them that not only are we technically going to work with them, but we've got the kind of human skills and soft skills to partner with them, which is fascinating. I'm going to come back on the subject of being fascinating to your educational history in just a few minutes' time, Paddy, because I find that really, I looked you up on LinkedIn and I find that really interesting, and to hear more about that. And in leading us into what people study and where they end up, it's a pleasure to welcome again Chris Maitland. And Chris, I want to go right to the kernel of this and to ask you about your degree at university, and then what led you on to study after that, please.
Sure, Aidan. And hello, everyone. I'm Chris Maitland, as I've been introduced. First of all, I just want to say thank you to people like the Belfast Mets and Queens and these opportunities that people are given to diversify and change their career into IT are the reason I'm here and able to speak about this today, because without that, I wouldn't be anywhere close to the job I am at now. So I started out, I've always had a keen interest in technology and computers, and I play far too many computer games, but I didn't have the degrees to get into a computer studies course, undergraduate degree. So I studied business with psychology, which was the psychology seminars were quite a lot different from the business ones. It mixed up the week, but that led to trying to find a career. That initially led me to become a barista in a cafe before I finally managed to get a job in financial services. There, I was able to work alongside tech professionals and not necessarily close with developers, but with the tech teams as a business analyst. And that was as close as I could get. I tried to find my way into the tech sector to get that kind of role, because that's where I wanted to end up. But there was always more qualified people, or you're not a right fit for the job. And eventually when I went to recruiters, they said, sorry, there's no way we can give you a job in the tech companies. And that's part of the reason what led me to finally make that jump when I finally hear about something such as the master's conversion course. There was an opportunity to jump and do it. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that and mulling it over, because I had a career, I had a salary, stability. But I think, as Patty mentioned earlier, there was a very forgiving wife was very helpful to take a year out and study. I mulled over to taking a part-time course, where I could keep working and studying at the same time. I mulled over whether it was the right decision for me. I was being offered an incentive to stay in my current more business role. But the sooner you make the leap, the sooner you get to start your new career. And that's what it came down to for me.
Chris, I want to go back to something that you said there, which I thought was absolutely fascinating, because you talked about having a career and a pension and paid holidays and all of that, and giving that up to go back into full-time study. From whom did you take counsel about that leap? Because I think that's very interesting. I mean, did everyone say to you, Chris, go for it, you'll regret it if you don't? Or did some people go, oh gosh, that Northern Ireland thing, oh, I don't know. And that was a tough situation for you to be in, wasn't it?
It is. And trust me, I had some charts around the house and scribblings of pros and cons and lists. Absolutely not everybody was telling me to go for the leap. It was a year out, a loss of my salary, loss of pension, as you mentioned, for a year at least. And certainly the people on the business side of my life were keen, very keen for me to not move out. Sure. Don't make the move. We're not going to guarantee you a job back in this industry if you leave.
Yeah.
So different voices, but you've got to be careful who you take advice from sometimes, because they won't always have your interests at heart. Yeah. So when you know what you want to do and what's right for you, and this opportunity comes up, you listen to the people you care about most. Your family, your husband, wife, and so that's who I listen to, and myself. Yeah.
I mean, that's quite a picture that you painted there, because not only it wasn't a sense of you being given the safety net of a career break. It was there will be no job, but if you stay with us, you're incentivized there more. So that made the gap between what you were doing and what you could be earning it even bigger. I think that's really interesting. It was like Shakespeare says, "To thine own self be true." Suppose if you had not taken that leap, you wouldn't be as happy and successful as you are now, but you would have had regrets. I'm going to come back, Chris, to talk again about advice, because I think you're in a unique position to give advice to some of the folks on the call today. But I want to take a deep breath and listen very carefully to Patty now, because because my next question, Patty, is take us through You gave us a lovely picture of your working day in Liberty, but I'd like you to try, and we're going to try and hang on here because you got to listen attentively. Paddy's going to tell us about his educational journey and his work journey, which is absolutely fascinating. So, Paddy, let's start that story, please.
Yeah, it's a slightly varied sort of journey to where I am now, to be quite honest. So you know, like probably like a lot of people in this call as well. You know, I didn't have A levels. I done you know, back in 1998 or 1996. I done an advanced BTEC, advanced JVQ in construction and built environment, which I'm not too sure what the equivalent is now, but basically it was worth 2 A levels and got me into university to study environmental engineering. So I worked as in the environmental engineering industry probably for about 12, 13 years, for different, you know, various, you know, in public sectors, you know, in environmental health departments, for government departments, in the air quality department, and even as consultancies, you know, designing wastewater treatment works or looking at waste management issues out in Iraq and Libya, and, you know, really interesting projects. But you know, at the same time as well, I actually completed a postgrad diploma in environmental engineering at Queen's part-time, which is sort of essentially a master's without the project, and was very much involved in, you know, wedded to sort of staying within that along a career path. You know, it was even a chartered environmentalist and a chartered water environment manager, and, you know, was very much set for like a long career in other industry. But then, just as a sort of a mixture of the recession of 2009 and just really sort of getting disillusioned with the industry, I decided to go back and retrain, and undertook an undergrad degree in radiotherapy and oncology at University of Ulster. So I was a 3-year undergrad degree, and then worked as a radiotherapy radiographer treating cancer patients in the cancer centre for about 18 months. But realised that wasn't for me as well. So this is kind of, as Chris said, going back to the very, very, very understanding sort of support of a wife we got and the support she provides. I went back to consultancy, engineering consultancy for a few months, really just to get a bit of money together. But and then really what I seen at the time as which was the best fit for me was a career in IT, and undertook a study for the conversion masters in software development at Queen's University.
Yeah.
So and for me, the reason I kind of decided to go down that route is I've always had an interest in technology and always worked with it in the industries I worked in previously, but it's the whole problem solving thing I quite like, you know, and working as a team member, you know, and it's a very much the industry's just exploding at the minute, really, and you know, you know, people have said, you know, and even people I work with, you know, they've always said, you know, like my line manager was was studied as a structural engineer, and, you know, kind of went sort of a shorter but similar route that I did. But and she always says that, you know, once you get a job in IT, like you'll never be out of work, because it's such a booming industry, you know. So so that's how I got here. It's a very sort of long and winding road, but
it's a brilliant story. It's a really brilliant story, and the lovely thing about this is that the session is recorded today. It'll be available on the college's YouTube channel, and will be another chance to enjoy that. But I want to go to a moment, Paddy, and then I'm going to come back to Chris. Paddy, I want you to tell us about, please, when you sat in the seminar room or the lecture theatre or something like that, you know, in the first week of your conversion program. Could you reflect on the range of disciplines that were sitting in that auditorium with you, the range of backgrounds out of those professionally?
It was touched on actually earlier on, and it's fantastic because, you know, like the range was unbelievable. We had you know, like the posters will give you an indication of sort of a rough idea of my age. So like, and I wasn't the oldest person in the room by any means. I certainly wasn't the youngest either. But, you know, with people who were just recently graduated, to people who had worked in a particular industry for up to 20 years, like myself, you know, who decided to get into the, you know, sort of the IT industry. You know, we had quite a lot of maths degrees students and people who graduated with, you know, a degree or master's in maths. But we had also had people from the arts industry. Like, you know, one of the group projects I was involved in, there was a girl who had graduate in music. I had a chemical engineer who worked in a power plant and decided to move into an industry which would probably provide a bit more stability. We actually had a clinical psychologist as well. You know, I trained, you know, some guy who probably spent probably up to about 10 years to fully get his wings, decided on a career change in the IT industry as well. So we had just such a range. It was fantastic, you know, and it really brought, everybody brought their own unique perspective and attribute and skill to it, which is great, you know, and that's what, you know, a multidisciplinary team is about. That they're really, you know, everybody, you know, who are from different backgrounds can bring something nice and different to it that you wouldn't see yourself. So it made for an interesting group projects, to be quite honest, but it was also great crack. It was very, very good, really interesting.
A whole range of and I suppose that it allows you to establish a rapport with a client, or with if you have a different experience. I mean, it's Sarah and I were just chatting about this recently on our Assured Skills Academy. We've had everything from religious ministers to doctors, a dentist, paleontologist, you know, and I have 3 in my family who refer to themselves as recovering lawyers. You know, so we've had every background which is going on there. And I'm going to come back, Paddy, and talk about advice later on. But I want to move Chris into the question that I think is really, really interesting. And that's somebody tuning in today or watching the recording on our YouTube channel later on. And that's someone who's not starting a career, but it's someone that was like you, who wants to start again, who wants to move. Who wants to get into the tech sector? Would you have any top tips for somebody tuning in, listening to this recording, going, I want to do this, but...
Yeah, and that's like the big question you have to ask yourself before you make the leap in any way, of course. If you're interested in any way, you go and find out more about it. First of all, there's so many different ways into the industry. Once you're in, like Paddy said, and Paddy's manager, you can go anywhere. You know, the industry is so many different types of roles and jobs for a career for your lifetime, and it's booming in Belfast. So the jobs are there. So if you're thinking about the future and you think, you know, that could be for me, how do you find out more about it? Well, you know, obviously Sarah's had a great presentation today about the different ways in. There's plenty of resources online where you can teach yourself a language really quickly. There are open source projects you can take part in for free that are just online, and join in, get to know a little community of people, and even find out what it's like to work on a tech project like that. In terms of what else is out there, there's social medias. You try and follow some of them, because they'll try and you'll find a bit more about it from the companies, and like the Belfast Met, bring it on, or Liberty IT. But it really doesn't matter. Like Paddy and yourself, Aidan, were just talking, whatever background you're from, you can bring that with you into the tech career. That only helps the way you move forward and what you bring to the technology team. So my own team in Liberty has a really varied background of people. We've got some ex-accountants. We've got another ex-barista. These are people who've worked with people before, and the stereotypical developer who sits in their hoodie and in the dark and codes away. It's not like that. And we work together as a team, and each of those members bring different skills and parts to the team. And some are more comfortable talking to the customers, and that's great because others aren't. And yeah.
That's brilliant. And that, Chris, what you're saying, I mean, you're a naturally good talker. You're a broadcaster as well as the profession which you have as well. You're good at talking to people. Some people don't want to do that. Some people don't want to interface with a client, and others do. And I was just struck by, you just made me think of something there when you were reflecting on the skills. Sarah and I are working with a company at the minute, one of the big 4 companies, and they, on one of our Assured Skills graduate programs a few years ago, employed a journalist who was retraining. And you know, I have to just qualify this by saying some of my best friends are journalists, okay? But this guy was retraining, and I said to the boss, "What do you want him for?" And he said, "Well, that's the nature of what we do, telling a story. So you tell a story to the client, which is you work with us and you partner with us and you trust us, and we won't let you down. And this is the outcome. This is the level of profit. This is the level of customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and that's going to that's really an important thing. Chris, I'm going to come back to you in just a moment, but I want to go, Paddy, and just say, well, you know, you've had a range of, I was going to say a range of careers, plural, up to this point. I wonder, could you reflect on, you talked about the lady who was your manager, and she was saying that, you know, you get a job in IT, you'll never be unemployed. There are always things happening. Other pieces of advice that you've received that you find really insightful and useful, Paddy?
Yeah, this is probably going to sound a bit corny, and it is probably a very much a standard piece of advice that, you know, you probably hear about all the time. But like, there was a Sicilian engineer I worked with, one of my first jobs, and she was absolutely fantastic. And this was after me making a few mistakes, admittedly, but she did basically tell me that, listen, no matter what level you're at, you're going to make mistakes. You know, she was a principal engineer at the time, and I was just a graduate engineer, and she's like, listen, I still make mistakes, you know, so you're always going to make mistakes. This is what you need to do, though, is be accountable for your mistakes, take responsibility for them, and learn from them. You know, if you basically keep making the same mistake, there's something wrong. And she says also try to be receptive to any constructive feedback you get. So constructive feedback given, you know, it should be taken in the manner that it's intended, and that it's an opportunity to learn from it. And not to be offended by it, which is hard because, you know, people do take, you know, any sort of feedback, you know, negative feedback or constructive feedback. You can't take it a bit personal, but take it as it is. Obviously, she said this in her very sort of fiery Sicilian manner, which made me sort of a bit afraid of her and very receptive to what she was saying. But it stuck with me for years. Like, it really has, you know. And I always, like, you know, any graduate is sort of when you know, in previous sort of careers, I was, you know, responsible for teams at certain aspects or stages, and that's one piece of advice I always give to people is, you know, you just need to be accountable for your actions and for any mistakes, you know. But it also means be accountable for, you know, your successes. You know, if you are successful in something you do, you know, revel in it. You know, take pride in it and build on it. You know, learn from that as well and build from it. I don't say it in a sort of scary Sicilian accent, but you know, in a very sort of nice, sort of semi-Belfast accent. So it doesn't have the same resonance, but
no. You just have visions of your Sicilian manager saying, "Learn from your mistakes," you know, and don't repeat them again. That's that could be that's a very interesting one. You made a point there, and Sarah reflected on it in one of her slides earlier on. She put a number of logos up, and one of a leader who I find very interesting, compelling to speak to is Brent Monaghan at New Ada, and he started we ran a graduate academy for a couple actually for New Ada, and Brent started by saying, you'll make mistakes. I want you to make mistakes early in your career. I'm going to assign a mentor to you, and the key thing about them, and you know, he said, when you get to my age, you made a number of mistakes. What I try to do is learn from them. So learn from those and see that as part of your career journey, and not to be something which is absolutely, you know, a dreadful thing. We ran an academy for Microsoft last year, and we had a number of students, I think just a few students, just narrowly missed one of the professional exams, MTA points, and they were assigned a mentor from Microsoft, and they were a wee bit on edge, you know, oh gosh, you know. And the guy flicked on the microphone and said, "Hi, you missed that by a couple of marks. The first time I missed it, first time I did it, I missed it by more marks than you." And you could just see the whole tension go.
Just go.
That they were just saying, "Look, this happens."
Yeah.
And this is what we're gonna do about it. Which is fascinating.
In software development, we actually do. There's a principle, a well-known principle called fail fast and fail often, because and that's how you learn. Basically, if you're working on something, don't, if you are going to fail, try and fail quick, so then you can learn from it, sure, and move on as even quicker. So it's part of what we do. It really is, and yeah, it's part of any industry, to be quite honest. It's part of the whole learning curve. No matter what level you're at, no matter what grade, graduate to principal to architect, it's just the way it is.
It's going to happen, and it's about being positive and learn from that. And you've reflected on your journeys and your career that you've had so far, and that led me, Chris, to something that I really wanted to ask you, because you spoke very engagingly about that dilemma, I wouldn't call it a crisis, but certainly a crossroads would be a better way of describing it. Do I go ahead with greater remuneration and a final salary pension and absolute security, or do I take this, like the poet Robert Frost talked about, the road not taken? Would I regret that? Well, you don't regret it because you took that path. But I wonder if you could go back now to a few years ago when you were choosing your business in psychology. I think psychology was your minor in your first degree. go back to that point when you're filling out the UCAS form, Chris. I think that's interesting because some people will be with us today who are in that situation or who are watching the playback and will be doing that as well. I suppose go back to when you're sitting there at 18. You're considering a career in IT, but maybe you're from a family where nobody's really worked in IT before and you don't really know an awful lot about it. Go back to, I suppose, your 18-year-old self, Chris. What would you say?
Have to go back a few years to think that far. Now, back to my 18, filling out that UCAS form, what would I say to myself is that I'd say to myself, don't be crazy, put down IT and find a degree, go study, do it. That's with hindsight, obviously, which is great. What I would say to anyone else who's trying to pick their course, obviously you'll have your passions, you've had your ideas about what you want to go to, and maybe IT hasn't been much of an influence on your life. Maybe your parents or nobody in your family's really been involved, or it's not really a promoted subject in your school, or you don't have the impression it's something for you. IT has full lifelong careers for everybody and anybody. For a start, every day is going to be different, and especially, I'm sure the same with Paddy and myself. We're lucky to have pretty diverse days every single day, depending on how good or bad it is. But the challenge it will always bring to you and the flexibility you get to have in your career is immeasurable, especially compared to some others. You could be, if you're more artistic, we need product designers. If you have been a whiz in maths, or you're just really good at problem solving, or that's what you want to do, then developers. If you like planning things, being the boss, you want to be in control of everything and scheduling, we need product owners, we need distribution leads. There's tons of roles that we need. And then you're thinking about, what am I going to do? Think about what you're going to do after uni. I did the conversion course with people who studied music, who studied other fantastic degrees that they were passionate about, and came out afterwards and found, I have no job. I need to study something so someone will give me a job. IT is always there. And it can't be underrated how more enjoyable I found it than I thought I would. So I finally found where I should be, rather than what I think's an okay decision back in the day. Oh, psychology sounds interesting, I'll try it. Yeah. And it is. That's not to take away from psychology. But I have a lot to be thankful for where I am today because of moving into IT.
And listening to you, Chris, talking about the range of roles that are available, that's wonderful for the folks tuning in. I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, actually, studying psychology is pretty useful for the profession that you have now, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, it's not something I talk about a lot, but honestly, I do think it has a benefit. It just helps you, it's the study of the mind, so it just helps you understand why people might be the way they are, and why situations are the way they come across, and just be more mindful of various stuff.
I had a boss in a job I used to do in broadcasting, and he used to say the hardest part of any job is not the job, it's the people. So, sharing territory with people, getting along with people, and I suppose that ability to analyze, is it a good time to ask your boss that question before she's taken her coat off and had that first cup of coffee? No, let's wait. That's common sense rather than psychology. Fascinating insight there. Fabulous, Chris. Thank you very much. Paddy, I'm going to pick up the question that I asked Chris and just put it directly to you and just say, well, what would you say to your 18-year-old self going back those 8 or 9 years? What would you say to yourself at that moment, filling out that UCAS form? I'm thinking about IT, but I'm not sure. What would you say?
The first thing I would say is start to use Alpecin hair shampoo or something, just to keep the hairline, hang on to that a bit longer.
I recommend it. German technology, absolutely.
Do you know what? It's, as Chris said, it's kind of listen to yourself, really. Do you know, you really have to think about, what you want to do, but how you can align that with a career that you're going to be, you're going to get satisfaction out of, really. And that depends what is going to satisfy you, be it work-life balance, career progression, salary, traveling. That's essentially what that's the advice I would give, really, because like IT is a great fit for us too. It mightn't be a great fit for other people, but but we eventually got here because we decided, we eventually listened to what we ultimately wanted and found a good fit. How we're going to achieve that. We found a good company, a fantastic company, which actually allows us to do that as well. In terms of the work-life balance and the family first principle mantra that Liberty Mutual or Liberty LIT and Liberty Mutual as a whole actually do sort of pursue, especially during this pandemic. So, we are very lucky, but we ultimately, coming back to that point, it's the same as somebody filling out their UCAS form. It's the same sort of position we were in, a couple of years ago. We were thinking, right, will we go down this route and change career? Is, what ultimately is going to make us happy, and how are we going to achieve this? Is this course going to help us get into the sort of career path that we want to do? And then, will then that career with that career or industry then allow us to basically develop along the path we want, or provide sort of avenues we wouldn't think we would like to get into at that stage, but gives that at potential, that opportunity. And that was one of the reasons why radiotherapy, I felt it wasn't a fit for me as well, because in the health service you're very much sort of constricted. You're very much on a treadmill. They call it even at Ulster University, they say like you're on the treadmill. Once you're on that treadmill, you're kind of on that career path. Whereas with IT, you're not on a treadmill. You're on a forced path, which basically when all these other wee paths off it, and and it's essentially what you want to do with it, yourself, and how you feel that it's going to fit the skills you develop along that path. So
it's been lovely to hear that both you, Paddy, and Chris have reflected on bringing your own personality into it, bringing your own interest in it, and how it's simply not a one-size-fits-all. There needs to be regimentation in medicine and pharmacy and radiography, all of those things, but there's that opportunity for individual expression and developing your own research interests as well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's funny because Chris did actually mention on the sort of as a creative side of it, people kind of forget that there really is a massively creative side to software development and the IT industry. Even if you're not what we call a user experience user, where you're in designing the nice sort of involved in design of nice websites and how to look, but also where I work in the back end, where you're basically working on the code that people don't see. There's creativity in that as well. How are you going to creatively solve a problem? So and that also suits people who are very much sort of methodically based and like problem solving, and it generally is and it's annoying me that it took me so long to find this career sort of path, but it's kind of one of those industries where it's you can find something that fits you if no matter what your background is, really. And that diversity is fantastic in any workplace. Anyway, diversity of any type is fantastic, but the skills and experiences and backgrounds that people bring just adds to that experience and adds to the general sort of work-life balance as well. How is yourself, you said yourself, sometimes the biggest challenge is working with people, but people from different backgrounds, or working with them, it just makes it a bit more interesting and easier to tolerate the 7.5 hours a day you're stuck in front of it.
Absolutely. Well, what an impressive journey both of our speakers have had today, and it's interesting. I asked both of them to go back to the age of 18. I'll cast back just a little further than both of our presenters today. When I was 18, and when I was at 18, there was a program that BBC made about careers called That Monday Morning Feeling, which I thought was very interesting. That Monday morning feeling, because that's really it. I remember seeing a documentary about the late Sir Terry Wogan, and he flicked on his microphone at 7 o'clock on a Monday morning at BBC Radio 2 and said, "Good morning, listeners, Monday at last." Well, I'm not going to ask Paddy or Chris if they ever wake up on a Monday morning and go Monday at last, but it is evident from your really compelling presentations today that you love what you do. You are valued and respected by an innovative and forward-looking employer, and we're very grateful to you for sharing your skills with us today. I'd like to thank Sarah for all of her management of this process, for bringing everyone together, for answering the questions, this recording. And certainly I'm going to listen back to it as well, because I know a little bit about our speakers, but I want to hear it again. It was absolutely fascinating. So you'll get an opportunity to listen to that on our Belfast Met YouTube channel. And then there'll be an opportunity to engage with us via Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So on behalf of everyone who's been a part of our webinar today, we sincerely thank Zoe and everyone at Liberty for being so gracious and generous to invest in the process with us. We thank our fabulous presenters today, Patty and Chris. Thank you very much. I could have listened to you for twice as long. And Sarah, I wonder, just in conclusion, is there anything you'd like to add on behalf of the management of the college?
Yeah, no, I just want to thank Patty and Chris again. I just think, well, it is really inspirational that you were very courageous in the decision that you both took to go and do the master's conversion course, and how you're both such strong advocates for moving into tech. And I am sure that that will inspire some of our viewers today and later on our YouTube channel. So thank you both very much.
Thank you again, Patty. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you everyone at Liberty IT for their support in engaging in the process. Thank you all for joining us again today, and we hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you.